let's jump into a team that we project to finish over 500. I think you and I both love. At least we have investment down. We have money down on them, and that would be the Chicago White Sox. In 2019, they had a projected win total of 74. They finished with 72 wins last year, and Pathag said 69. So they didn't achieve what Vegas had set out for them, and Pathag said that they should have been even worse. Now they're projected at 84.5. Your projection has the White Sox at 85. What's changed for this team in the last year to where they haven't achieved what the win total was last year, but yet we're projecting them much higher than what they finished?
Yeah, so these were your 2020 offseason champs. So I don't know when the parade is scheduled, but they'll throw it before opening day, I'm sure. It's a interesting situation, right? Because I bet they're under last year, and I said that the only way that they would go over was if they saw significant improvement from Moncada, significant improvement from Giolito, and Eloy Jimenez gave them a bunch. And they got all of that and still finished with 69 wins. They went out, they signed Yasmani Grandal, Edwin Encarnacion, traded for Nomar Mazara, signed Dallas Keuchel, signed Gio Gonzalez, signed Steve Cishek. They lost like Ivan Nova and Yolmer Sanchez. So you're talking about a solid 15 wins above replacement that they added to this roster. In addition to the potential development of those young players that we mentioned, in addition to the fact that they have what I consider one of the best pitching coaches in baseball in Don Cooper, who can continue to work with this rotation. I saw really encouraging signs from Reynaldo Lopez last year. He had a 4.18 FIP in the second half, 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. This rotation is filled with guys who all throw between 97 and 99 miles an hour, if not harder, especially when they get Michael Kopech back. If they get Rodon back as well, you're talking about 5 guys who throw 95 and above, which is, even in an era where we're in, is beyond impressive. So they know exactly what they are on the pitching side. And Cooper is, like I said, a great groomer of talent. But then you flip to the offensive side, they have the chance to add Luis Robert to their lineup. He was 30-30. He was the youngest 330-30 in the minors last year since 1961. So that alone is telling. They signed him to a 6-year, $50 million extension. They've got a few other high-level prospects that are pretty much on the cusp of the majors. Nick Madrigal, the primary of which, 2-time College World Series champ. He's putting up historically high contact rates in the minors. Pecota loves him. The 90th percentile projection on Pecota for Madrigal had him hitting, I believe, 315. So he's put up a 44-16 walk to strikeout ratio in the minors. That's absurd. That's video game numbers.
Yep.
So it's just a combination of, the offseason additions, the youth movement, everything really come together at the same time. I think the Twins are certainly a better team, but I think the White Sox have a higher upside.
Sean's here on the podcast throwing Oregon State love as I'm dressed all decked out in Razorback baseball gear right now. But let's talk about the Yasmani Grandal signing. I think is bigger than anybody can realize because he's top 5 almost every season and runs extra strikes. And we talk about framing. That's all about framing. And he is a big boost as far as creating strikes in the shadow zone. So I think that is a huge boost for them. It's a huge boost for this pitching staff. The problem that I have is Gio Gonzalez, Dallas Keuchel, especially Dallas Keuchel, he needs a defense behind him. Like, he likes to pitch to contact. He needs a defense behind him at this stage in his career. Do we have that with the White Sox?
Yeah, so they're kind of swapping out one Gold Glover for another potentially with Sanchez for Madrigal. Once Madrigal comes up, the rest of the defense is a bit concerning. They were negative 56 in DRS in 2019. They were pretty bad at catcher though, so a lot of that was their catching spot, and Grandal is going to fix a little bit of that. Eloy is not a good defender, so I think that leads into part of it too. Jose Abreu is a little bit old, a little bit a little bit stiff.
He likes to be a DH. He likes the Adam Eaton DH spot.
And that's the problem. They seem like they have a bunch of DHs on this team, especially with Mazara as well. Mazara is not a good defender also. Anderson, I think, is closer to average. So it's not a good defensive team. Keuchel, compared to Zach Wheeler, who they were initially pursuing, Keuchel is such a worse signing for the fit of their team.
Right.
Wheeler would have fit in so much better, but he's the thing about Keuchel that most people don't get, in addition to the ground balls, he's incredible at pickoffs. He's incredible at defense. He's the pitcher who's doing all the little things that you don't notice, and that's where his value comes in. So even as you see the strikeout rate continuing to fall, like he's doing other things that does provide value, even though he's not your traditional 2020 like big strikeout pitcher. So Keuchel's interesting. I'd be more concerned about Gio Gonzalez. Gonzalez's skills have kind of fallen off the table. So the back end of their rotation, like I said, until Rodon gets back, could be a little bit shaky. But the one thing I really love about this team is the Cuban flavor. Like the Grandal, Abreu, Robert, like this is the Cuban national team. And there's something super exciting about that. I love when teams have an identity, and I really feel like with Edwin brings so much personality to the table as well. I feel like this team is just going to have so much personality this year, and even if they're not going to win the World Series or win the AAL Central, they're going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, the Parrots coming to Guaranteed Rate Field, or can we not just call it Old Comiskey or New Comiskey, whatever we want to call it? But Edwin Canarsonon, I think that is the fantasy player that you want to target, because he's going to go really low in drafts, but he's a reliable source of home runs, and home runs are, can be hard to find, especially we don't know what's going on with the ball this year. But he's a guy that always drops because of his DH eligibility and because of his age in leagues. In Guaranteed Rate Field, it was top 10 in home runs 3 of the last 4 years per park factors. So, I mean, this team, and I contractually can't say anything bad about Dallas Keuchel as a former Razorback. So we love this team. And you and I were both on this for, World Series, division, and we kind of feel like everybody else is caught up. We still have the feeling that this is the team that we like in the AL Central, correct?
Yeah. There's an 82.5 out there at MGM. I would bet the over on that. That's the smallest gap between a projection and an over that I would bet, but that's how I feel about this team. I feel very strongly about the White Sox. As the market consensus has kind of caught up to us, I've become a little bit more nervous about the fact
Right.
that we have such a strong position on them, but jumping in at 7,500 early was something we probably should have max bet and then prop swapped maybe. If we really wanted to make some money on it, I doubt they end up cashing at the end of the day, but we have some plus 500 division, plus 7,500 World Series. So I have over 81.5 on a win total. Like I said, if you can get over 82.5, I'd still play it.
Yeah, Sean is on the East Coast, and I happened to be in Vegas when all these baseball numbers started popping, and we left with an NL bet, and we definitely left with a White Sox bet. We'll talk about the NL bet on the NL pod, but yeah, the White Sox were one of the first ones we jumped on. But I mean, I'm happy that legalized sports gambling is coming everywhere, but at the same time, putting up a baseball win total and baseball futures like the day the World Series is over just feels. I mean, are you that desperate for money to get people into your sports book? Like you're putting such a rush on us math guys when we know these numbers you're putting up are nowhere close. Like no one's done their research. We don't know anything about the hot stove. We don't know, it's just it makes a lot of us rush. I miss the days where these win totals would come out around the same time where pitchers and catchers would report.